Hey friends, Miss Palmer here, doing another read aloud this week. We are going to read another chapter from Charlotte's Web. We're getting very, very close to the end of the book. We don't have too many chapters left, so I definitely want to keep doing read alouds to finish out this book because I just know that you guys will absolutely love to hear it all the way through, especially any kids from my class. But the chapter that we're reading from here is called The Egg Sack. So if you remember on the last chapter, Charlotte talked about how she was doing something for herself. So it sounds like maybe she was building herself an egg sack, which we know spiders build egg sacks and that's where their babies are. So that makes me think maybe Charlotte has had babies in this egg sack. Let's read to find out. Next morning, when the first light came into the sky and the sparrows stirred in the trees, when the cows rattled their chains and the roosters crowed and the early automobiles went whispering along the road, Wilbur awoke and looked for Charlotte. He saw her up overhead in a corner near the back of his pen. She was very quiet. Her 8 legs were spread wide. She seemed to have shrunk during the night. Next to her, attached to the ceiling, Wilbur saw a curious object. It was sort of a sack or a cocoon. It was peach colored and looked as though it were made of cotton candy. "Are you awake, Charlotte?" he said softly. "Yes," came the answer. "What is that nifty little thing? Did you make that?" "I did indeed," replied Charlotte in a weak voice. "Is it a plaything?" "Plaything? I should say not. It's my egg sack. It's my magnum opus." "I don't know what magnum opus is," said Wilbur. "That's Latin," explained Charlotte. "It means great work. This egg sack is my great work, the finest thing I've ever made." "What's inside it?" asked Wilbur. "Eggs?" 514 of them," she replied. 514? said Wilbur. "You're kidding." "No, I'm not. I counted them. I got started counting, so I kept on, just to keep my mind occupied." "It's a perfectly beautiful egg sack," said Wilbur, feeling happy as though he had constructed it himself. "Yes, it is pretty," replied Charlotte, patting the sack with her 2 front legs. "Anyway, I can guarantee that it is strong. It's made out of the toughest material I have. It's also waterproof. The eggs are inside and will be warm and dry." "Charlotte," said Wilbur dreamily, "are you really going to have 514 children?" "If nothing happens, yes," said Charlotte. "Of course they won't show up until next spring." Wilbur noticed that Charlotte's voice sounded sad. "What makes you sound so downhearted? I would think you would be terribly happy about this." "Oh, don't pay me any attention," said Charlotte. "I just don't have much pep anymore. I guess I feel sad because I won't ever get to see my children." "What do you mean you won't see your children?" "Of course you will. We'll all see them. It's going to be a simply wonderful next spring in the barn cellar with 514 baby spiders running around all over the place. And the geese will have a new set of gooselings, and the sheep will have their new lambs." "Maybe," said Charlotte quietly. "However, I have a feeling I'm not going to see the results of last night's efforts. I don't feel good at all. I think I'm languishing, to tell you the truth." Wilbur didn't understand the word languish, and he hated to bother Charlotte by asking her to explain it to him, but he was so worried that she felt sick. "What does languishing mean?" "It means I'm slowing up, feeling my age. I'm not young anymore, Wilbur. But I don't want you to worry about me. This is your big day today. Look at my web. Doesn't it show up well with the dew on it?" Charlotte's web never looked more beautiful than it did this morning. Each strand held dozens of bright drops of early morning dew. The light from the east struck it and made it all plain and clear. It was a perfect piece of designing and building. In another hour or two, a steady stream of people would pass by, admiring it, reading it, and looking at Wilbur and marveling at the miracle. As Wilbur was studying the web, a pair of whiskers and a sharp face appeared. Slowly, Templeton drug himself across the pen and threw himself down in a corner. "I'm back," he said in a husky voice. "What a night!" The rat was swollen to twice his normal size. His stomach was as big as a jelly jar. "What a night," he repeated hoarsely. What feastings, a real gorge. I must have eaten the remains of at least 30 lunches. Never have I ever seen such leavings, and everything well ripened and seasoned with the passage of time and the heat of the day. Oh, it was rich, my friends, rich. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, said Charlotte in disgust. It would serve you right if you had an attack of indigestion. Don't worry about my stomach, snarled Templeton. It can handle anything. And by the way, I've got some bad news. As I came past that pig next door, the one that calls himself Uncle, I noticed a blue tag on the front of his pig pen. That means he won first prize. I guess you're licked, Wilbur. You might as well relax. Nobody's going to be handing a medal to you. Furthermore, I wouldn't be surprised if Zuckerman changes his mind about you. Wait till he gets the hankering for some fresh pork and some smoked ham and crisp bacon. He'll take the knife to you for sure. Be still, Templeton, said Charlotte. You're so stuffed and bloated you don't even know what you're saying. Don't pay any attention to him, Wilbur. Wilbur tried not to think about what the rat had just said. He decided to change the subject. Templeton, said Wilbur, if you weren't so dopey, you would have noticed that Charlotte made an egg sack. She's going to become a mother. For your information, there are 514 eggs in that peachy little sack. Is this true? Asked the rat, eyeing the sack suspiciously. Yes, it's true, sighed Charlotte. Congratulations, murmured Templeton. This has been such a night. He closed his eyes, pulled some straw over himself, and dropped into a deep sleep. Wilbur and Charlotte were glad to be rid of him for a little while. At 9 o'clock, Mr. Arbel's truck rolled into the fairgrounds and came to a stop at Wilbur's pen. Everybody climbed out. Look, cried Fern, look at Charlotte's Web, look what it says. The grown-ups and the children joined in hands and stood there, studying the new sign. Humble, said Mr. Zuckerman. Now isn't that just the word for Wilbur? Everyone rejoiced to find that the miracle of the web had been repeated. Wilbur gazed up lovingly into their faces. He looked very humble and very grateful. Fern winked at Charlotte. Lurvy soon got busy. He poured a bucket of warm sloughs into the trough, and while Wilbur ate his breakfast, Lurvy scratched him gently with a smooth stick. Wait a minute, cried Avery. Look at this. He pointed at the blue tag on Uncle's pen. This pig has already won first prize. The Zuckermans and the Arbels stared at the tag. Mrs. Zuckerman began to cry. Nobody said a word. They just stared at the tag. Then they stared at Uncle. Then they stared at the tag again. Lurvy took out an enormous handkerchief and blew his nose very loud, so loud, in fact, that the noise was heard by the stable boys over at the horse barn. Can I have some money? Asked Fern. I want to go out on the midway. You stay right where you are, said her mother. Tears came to Fern's eyes. What's everybody crying about? Asked Mr. Zuckerman. Let's get busy. Edith, bring the buttermilk. Mrs. Zuckerman wiped her eyes with her handkerchief. She went to the truck and came back with a gallon jar of buttermilk. Bath time, said Zuckerman cheerfully. He and Mrs. Zuckerman and Avery climbed into Wilbur's pen. Avery slowly poured buttermilk on Wilbur's head and back as it trickled down his side and cheeks. Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman rubbed it into his hair and skin. Passerbys stopped to watch. Pretty soon, quite a crowd had gathered. Wilbur grew beautifully white and smooth. The morning sun shone through his pink ears. He isn't as big as that pig next door, remarked one bystander, but he's cleaner, and that's what I like. So do I, said another man. He's humble, too, said a woman, reading the sign on the web. Everybody who visited the pig pen had a good word to say about Wilbur. Everyone admired the web, and of course nobody noticed Charlotte. Suddenly a voice was heard on the loudspeaker. Attention, please, it said. Will Mr. Homer Zuckerman bring his famous pig to the judge's booth in front of the grandstand? A special award will be made in 20 minutes. Everyone is invited to attend. Crate your pig, please, Mr. Zuckerman, and report to the judge's booth promptly. For a moment, after the announcements, the Arbels and the Zuckermans were unable to speak or move. Then Avery picked up a handful of straw and threw it high in the air and gave a loud yell. The straw fluttered down like confetti into Fern's hair. Mr. Zuckerman hugged Mrs. Zuckerman. Mr. Arbel kissed Mrs. Arbel. Avery kissed Wilbur. Lurvy shook hands with everybody. Fern hugged her mother. Avery hugged Fern. Mrs. Arbel hugged Mrs. Zuckerman. Up overhead, in the shadows of the ceiling, Charlotte crouched unseen, her front legs encircling her egg sack. Her heart was not beating as strongly as usual, and she felt weary and old. But she was sure at last that she had saved Wilbur's life, and she felt at peace. "We have no time to lose," shouted Mr. Zuckerman. Lurvy, help with the crate." "Can I have some money?" asked Fern. "You wait," said Mrs. Arble. "Can't you see everybody is busy?" "Put that empty buttermilk into the truck," demanded Mr. Arble. Avery grabbed the jar and rushed to the truck. "Does my hair look all right?" asked Mrs. Zuckerman. "Looks fine," snapped Mr. Zuckerman as he and Lurvy set the crate down in front of Wilbur. "You didn't even look at my hair," said Mrs. Zuckerman. "You're all right, Edith," said Mrs. Arble. "Just keep calm." Templeton, asleep in the straw, heard the commotion and awoke. He didn't know exactly what was going on, but when he saw the men shoving Wilbur into the crate, he made up his mind to go along. He watched his chance, and when no one was looking, he crept into the crate and buried himself in the straw at the bottom. "All ready, boys?" cried Mrs. Zuckerman. "Let's go." He and Mr. Arble and Lurvy and Avery grabbed the crate and boosted it over the side of the pen and up into the truck. Fern jumped aboard and sat on top of the crate. She still had straw in her hair and looked very pretty and excited. Mr. Arble started the motor. Everyone climbed in, and off they drove to the judge's booth in front of the grandstand. As they passed the Ferris wheel, Fern gazed up at it and wished she were at the topmost car with Henry Fussy at her side. So that's the end of that chapter. So, a lot happened in this chapter. Charlotte made her egg sack, and we learned that there are 514 little spider eggs in there. That's a lot. But she's afraid that she's not going to be around to see those babies come. She's feeling very weak and tired. That's a lot of work for a spider to make that egg sack and to lay all those babies. So she's feeling very tired. So she's not so sure if she's going to be around much longer. And Wilbur's definitely sad about that. But now they've come to learn that even though he didn't win first prize for being the best pig at the fair, he is going to end up winning another prize because Charlotte had written humble in her web above his pig pen. And since they bathed him and he looks so clean and nice, the judges are taking another look at him and going to award him a special prize. So the Zuckermans and the Arbles are very, very, very excited about this. So the next book that we're going to read is called The Giving Tree. I love this book. This is one of my very, very, very favorite books. If you've never read it before, if you have, I hope you enjoy listening to it again. But it's just a great story and just a happy story. A little sad at parts too, but I think it's just great for everybody to hear and listen to. Once there was a tree. And she loved a little boy. And every day the boy would come and he would gather her leaves. And make them into crowns and play king of the forest. He would climb up her trunk. And swing from her branches. And eat apples. And they would play hide and go seek. And when he was tired, he would sleep in her shade. And the boy loved the tree. Very much. And the tree was happy. But time went by. So you can see the boy's bigger now. He's older. And the boy grew older. So look, now you see 2 pairs of legs and another heart. So that makes you think maybe the boy has a girl there with him. Lots of inferring on that page, huh? And the tree was often alone. Oh, the tree looks sad. Then one day, the boy came to the tree. The tree said, "Come, boy, come and climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and eat apples and play in my shade and be happy." "I'm too big to climb and play," said the boy. "I want to buy things and have fun. I want some money. Can you give me some money?" "I'm sorry," said the tree, "but I have no money. I only have leaves and apples." "Take my apples, boy, and sell them in the city. Then you will have money, and then you will be happy." And so the boy climbed up the tree and gathered her apples and carried them away, and the tree was happy. But the boy stayed away for a long time, and the tree was sad. Then one day the boy came back, and the tree shook with joy, and she said, "Come, boy, come climb up my trunk and swing from my branches and be happy." "I'm too busy to climb trees," said the boy. "I want a house to keep me warm," he said. "I want a wife and I want children, and so I need a house. Can you give me a house?" "I have no house," said the tree. "The forest is my house, but you may cut off my branches and build a house. Then you will be happy." And so the boy cut off her branches and carried them away to build his house. And the tree was happy. But the boy stayed away for a long time, and when he came back, the tree was so happy she could hardly speak. "Come, boy," she whispered, "come and play." "I'm too old and sad to play," said the boy. "I want a boat that will take me far away from here. Can you give me a boat?" "Cut down my trunk and make a boat," said the tree. "Then you can sail away and be happy." And so the boy cut down her trunk and made a boat and sailed away. And the tree was happy, but not really. There's not very much left of the tree now. After a long time, the boy came back again. "I'm sorry, boy," said the tree, "but I have nothing left to give you. My apples are gone. My teeth are too weak for apples," said the boy. "My branches are gone," said the tree. "You cannot swing on them." "I'm too old to swing on branches," said the boy. "My trunk is gone," said the tree. "You cannot climb." "I'm too tired to climb," said the boy. "I'm sorry," sighed the tree. "I wish I could give you something, but I have nothing left. I'm just an old stump. I'm sorry." "I don't need very much now," said the boy. "Just a quiet place to sit and rest. I'm very tired." "Well," said the tree, straightening herself up as much as she could, "well, an old stump is good for sitting and resting. Come, boy, sit down and rest." And the boy did. And the tree was happy. The end. right, and that's the end. I just love that book because it's about a boy and a tree and how much the tree gave to the boy, and I just think it's a sweet, sweet, sweet little story. If we think about some people in our lives that give so much to us, maybe we can show them how much we appreciate them, like our moms and our dads and our grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles and friends and brothers and sisters. Maybe just showing them you're grateful today in some way, giving a hug, calling them, telling them thank you, making a letter, making a note, anything to show them you're grateful, I think would be an awesome idea today. So I hope you all enjoyed our stories. Check back next week. We'll read another chapter of Charlotte's Web and another read aloud. Bye.